Hi, and welcome to the Delta Dialogue. In this podcast, we talk about open data, open medical data, and AI from above and beyond and explore its implications to our world. On the fifth episode, we will continue talking with Butter and discuss on the current ecosystem around open medical data and AI. I'm your host, Emir Mustafa. I want to draw upon an interview that you had with L24. You mentioned in your interview about the COVID 19 pandemic and that it'll be the last of its kind if we generalize AI in four axes. Can you explain these four axes, what they are, and how it would help us control future pandemics?
Yeah, indeed. I don't know if you do remember, it all started with the Google flu trends. Do you remember the Google flu trends?
Yeah.
It was very interesting because I mean this project failed, but it said a lot about what artificial intelligence can do, and it was very brilliant. I mean, Google was quite visionary and quite ambitious on that, and I mean, it was so fantastic. Anyway, in my point of view, one of the main obstacles is the fragmentation of data sources. In this case, because this makes it difficult for researchers to examine data from different sources and projects while maintaining privacy. But this problem can potentially be addressed through the use of federated learning in the case of pandemic prediction. Um, you asked me about those four axes. Let me share with you these four axes in a nutshell. First of all, it's about prediction. I don't know if you do remember, but in the beginning of the pandemic, we had this fantastic company, so-called Blue Dot, that had been able to predict the emergence of a new virus. A new virus was raging on in Asia. And actually, if we do use artificial intelligence based on open medical data, indeed, we will be more likely to protect our people, to protect nations against upcoming pandemics. The second axis is about the identification. It's important to estimate the right number of infected people, thanks, for example, to chest CT that showed a better sensitivity and a better specificity, meaning that thanks to AI, we have less false negative and less false positive. Several papers performed by some academics proved it. PCR tests are important, but they are way less convincing. Some studies says and stated that there is about 20% of false positive when it comes to using PCR tests. AI, artificial intelligence, has been, I mean, in my point of view, definitely underestimated in our anti-pandemic strategy. A better identification also mean a better organization within hospitals. We've talked about it. Nurses will be more likely to better distinguish coronavirus pneumonia and classic pneumonia, um, to decrease the infection rate and protect patients and doctors around them. This is a way to support them. It's important to give them this confidence, to let them know that even though they are facing a very difficult situation, with artificial intelligence, the atmosphere, the environment is safer. And thanks to identification, we are also able to better monitor patients. We talked about it a bit earlier, prediction of respiratory failures, uh, and it's also needed and required to better anticipate a further support when times are tough and difficult. The third axis is linked to tracking. In my point of view, tracking is very useful because thanks to artificial intelligence and thanks to an app, this is about converting the pandemic risk to an epidemic risk. And this is very useful because it's sort of cooperation between nations. When you track um, people, of course, under the condition of a pandemic, you will be more likely, or you will be less likely to spread the virus all around the world. So, in my point of view, this element, this axis, is mandatory, and it was again underestimated, has been underestimated during this pandemic. We talk about drug development. We use machine learning to in drug discovery because it analyzes large amounts of data and identify potential of drug candidates. This is in a nutshell the four steps, the four axes we need to consider in any pandemic situation: prediction, identification, tracking, and drug development. If we do follow these four axes under the condition of a global cooperation, in my point of view, and rationally, the pandemic risk will approach zero. Of course, new viruses will emerge, but I don't think we're going to face the same situation we face in 2020.
You mentioned at the beginning of that answer the excitement there was about Google flu trends. And back in 2008, I think, Google said that they could identify from what people were searching whether there was a flu outbreak coming. And it seemed for a while it was great. But then it somehow got the results very wrong. It failed to predict, I think, a flu outbreak in 2013, and Google fairly quietly shut the program down. So, how does the system that you're describing avoid a similar sort of situation that we might think for a while we understand how to interpret search terms and then we get it wrong? I think, in retrospect, Google's internal mechanisms had reached some false correlations. It seemed that they had identified things which people often search for just before flu, but they weren't connected causally. It was just an accident, and that had misled them. So, how does the system you're proposing stand to do better and avoid a similar disappointment in the future?
Sure, agree on that. Actually, Google Flu Trends has been launched in 2008, I think. So, of course, we can't compare 2008 and 2023. In my point of view, AI, I mean, is better now in terms of performance, in terms of prediction. In 2008, it was maybe too early to talk about flu prediction because now we have more materials, we have more investment in artificial intelligence, and also a better flexibility in terms of adjusting artificial intelligence within, I mean, in a specific situation. In my point of view, uh, uh, frankly speaking, Google Flu Trends was not a serious project. In my point of view, it was a test. Google wanted to firstly use artificial intelligence and data, let's say, processing to see to what extent they can leverage on open data, open medical data. And it says, I mean, in my point of view, it says a lot about the development of artificial intelligence in the near future because now in 2023 we are able to predict uh, pandemics thanks to artificial intelligence. In 2021, UK has decided to use unsupervised learning in order to better predict the infection rate within its population. And actually, the prediction was correct. They didn't fail in the prediction thanks to unsupervised learning. So, in my point of view, it's a different time. We have also a better understanding of the quality of data. In 2008, it wasn't something very, very well known. the paradigm was not yet complete in our minds, but now we are more likely to face any pandemic as long as we use artificial intelligence in a more generalist way.
All right. I wanted to also draw on your experience. I mean, since we see, yeah, I mean, I see you on social media, you're going to speak at very diverse international institutions and all these conferences and conversations you have with them, such as the GCC and the World Economic Forum. Since you've had experience with these people, and I'm very curious about on the stance and the opinion of those leaders on open medical data and the advancement of AI. Because we've talked about public-private partnerships, we've talked about the private ones, but the public ones are also really important here. And so, what is, in your opinion, their stance on this?
Indeed. Frankly speaking, leaders are aware of the development of AI. At the GCC, leaders are clever, very clever, and spend significant time to develop such ecosystem. Um, they do not rely on oil only because, in my point of view, they had anticipated that trend, that AI trend, by considering the development. You know, the potential contribution of AI and Web3 technologies to the Gulf Cooperation Council economies could reach over 15 billions per year by 2030. You know, this is, I mean, they clearly know how to invest, and this is good news. But we can also notice this a similar dissimilar elements in other countries. But indeed, it's very difficult to use artificial intelligence, to apply artificial intelligence on a daily basis because you need to convince people first. We can go forward without convincing people about the positive aspects of artificial intelligence. Now people think that artificial intelligence is ex nihilo spirit that is going to replace us uh, in companies that gonna uh, remove us from the contribution to humanity. And actually, artificial intelligence, like any tool, is just a way to better perform, to outperform. You know, there was a very important and very interesting demonstration performed by Hewitt and Agion, two smart economists. They say that after a certain level of automation, you need to hire again. Why? Because actually, um, you need to create new commercial activities based on new ideas. And artificial intelligence can help you out, can make suggestions, but artificial intelligence can't be as creative as humans, meaning that we can replace some jobs in a short time period, but after a while, we're gonna hire again, and we will need humans again. So we need to highlight this aspect when it comes to teaching about artificial intelligence. And indeed, it's very difficult to apply artificial intelligence, to internalize artificial intelligence on a daily basis in the political system, in the public sector in general, if we do not convince people. This is my conviction.
And moving on to a very hyped up topic, ChatGPT. As you've mentioned on social media, you've interacted with the AI. I'm very curious on your thoughts on the software. What is your opinion on ChatGPT?
I mean, ChatGPT was quite surprising in my point of view. I really like the hype because it gives access to anyone to approach artificial intelligence, and this is something good to me. It's good news, um, and I was quite I was quite let's say surprised because when I used ChatGPT, Let me be honest, I asked this following question: who invented the concept of augmented basic income? And I was quite surprised to see that ChatGPT 3 responded. It seems that a certain person named Badr Busabat who coined this concept, blah, blah, blah. It was quite funny to see that. But of course, I did it again and it didn't work. It shows how artificial intelligence is not perfect at all yet. I mean, ChatGPT 3 is very useful, but it's not that perfect. It's an improvement in a way, but creativity is still important. I wouldn't say, I would say even more that I would say that we have been inventing machines and tools from the beginning of humanity, but nobody can pretend that the tool itself exempted human from being creative. The tool itself doesn't matter. It's all about what we're supposed to do with. I have seen so many posts on LinkedIn and Twitter about the use of ChatGPT 3, and honestly, only 10% paid my attention, or because only a few shared a remarkable insight about ChatGPT 3. Others were just replicating retro looking thoughts based on what they have heard um, in a media press of from a colleague. Historically speaking, the sfumato of Leonardo da Vinci is a perfect example. The method and the tools were available, but almost nobody wouldn't compete with Leonardo da Vinci. So it's very important to highlight that creativity is even more important now thanks to ChatGPT 3, because you need to um, differentiate yourself in the market, and then take advantage of what you delivered in terms of project insights and so on. So ChatGPT 3, good news. It's an improvement in a way, somehow an improvement, but we can't conclude and say that we're going to replace journalists, we're going to replace writers and so on, because creativity is even more important now.
Have you seen some of the poems that ChatGPT can? So I don't think they're the best poems ever, but I'm sure they're better poems than I could write. And you can also ask it, here's some film titles. If there are more film titles in the same series, becoming more and more exaggerated every time, what would they be? And some of the creativity, it seems, is remarkable. So I'm not sure I would say that these AIs have no creativity. I think they can put things together in surprisingly new ways, especially when we know how to prompt them. And part of the essence here, part of the challenge, is knowing exactly how to speak to these AIs so they can produce truly wonderful new outcomes. So I don't think this is the end. I think there will be new features in new large language models. There's a new company called Anthropic, which was made from a spin out from people from OpenAI. OpenAI have made GPT. Anthropic have made a model called Claude. And it hasn't been publicly released yet, but according to the screenshots that have been shared, it can produce some really enchanting and creative outputs as well. So I think this is an area that we all need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, indeed. No, no, differently. But in my point of view, in the coming years, we will have two boulevard of creation. The first one will be um, artificial intelligence creation, and the second will be human creation. And we will be able to distinguish these two movements and even appreciate those two movements differently. If we know that there is a human behind an artistic creation, we will have another approach, in my point of view. If we know that artificial intelligence has developed or has created this painting, we will also adopt another approach. So, in my point of view, there will be no conflict between humans and artificial intelligence in painting, in arts in general. Um, this is just a new, let's say, boulevard of creation artificial intelligence has created. And in business in general, ChatGPT, for instance, will be a tool, a fantastic tool, but will not replace human at all. And again, I'm going to highlight this aspect. Creativity will be again even more important because now ChatGPT is free access. Anyone can go on the website and ask questions. But do you ask the right questions? Do you have a clear idea of the business you want to launch? Do you really feel what's coming up in terms of opportunities? I don't think so. It's much more difficult than we might think.
I'm not entirely convinced. I look at Turing tests of music. Turing test famously was suggested by Alan Turing, and the musical Turing test is when you get various pieces of music, some written by a real composer like Johann Sebastian Bach, some written by AIs in the style of Johann Sebastian Bach, and others written by modern humans also imitating Bach. And if you play these to quite musically sophisticated audiences, they will often say that the one that inspires them the most, that moves their soul, you don't tell them which is which, but they will pick, oh, number three. And quite often it's the one written by AI that seems to them to be the most heavenly, to be the most inspired. So here's an example of which has an element of creativity that was unexpected a while back, and now increasingly it's changing the possibilities in musical creation. I think we're going to see similar things with poems, similar things with short stories. And for the time being, I think humans will write better short stories. But before long, we will see AIs matching most short stories.
And do you think that humans will be willing to compete with artificial intelligence when it comes to creating poems and painting?
I think we humans will still enjoy competing, but we won't try to compete with the AIs. It's like when I play golf, I'm never going to be as good as Tiger Woods or Rory McIlroy. In fact, I'm a million times worse, but I still enjoy competing with some of my golfing buddies. When I play chess, I'm not as good as Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, nowhere near him. I'm not as good as the best AI, but I can still get pleasure. So we will have pleasure from competitions, but of a different sort, I think.
Yeah, indeed. But in my point of view, it's not going to be harmful for humans because humans rely. I mean, humans in general rely on exclusivity and scarcity. And if we do open artificial intelligence to anyone in terms of creation and arts in general, um, there will be no, let's say, interesting game to play. And humans are always have been always looking for interesting games to play. So, in my point of view, the competition that is coming up will be a competition based on how we use artificial intelligence around us to better perform in the markets or in art in general. So this perfect collaboration between a human and artificial intelligence in terms of creation will be key. But I don't think that humans will be, let's say, dismissed or will be completely replaced. And as you said, and I totally agree with you on that, I fully agree with you on that, we will still enjoy it. We will enjoy it. Um, there's gonna be a new pleasure, a new passion, a new way of enjoying life. But there is something I just wanna highlight. There will be no conflict between humans and artificial intelligence. I haven't find any rational demonstration yet that would conclude that artificial intelligence is going to replace humans. Concretely, we do not have any evidence on that.
I was going to echo back your comments about hospitals. You said that hospitals are used to doing things in one way, they don't like to change. After all, it's matters of life and death, so they don't want to introduce unnecessary changes, but they have to change. They have to learn more about AI. I think it's the same with us humans. We've got our own frameworks of thinking, and we have to learn to change too. we have to operate in different ways with AI. I, like you, believe we can have a wonderful future in a world in which AI is much more present. But we're not going to enjoy that if we are stuck with some of our old thinking. We're going to have to give some things up and adjust. And if we can do that in a nimble way, I think the future can be very good in our coexistence in a world with stronger, more capable, more powerful AIs.
I wanted to add a remark on top of this. I mean, you both are authors of books, and I mean, Badr, you've authored two books and countless articles so far. David has authored many books of his own, and as you both probably know, people are using AI such as ChatGPT to write books, let alone articles, and they publish them. I'm actually curious on both of your opinions on if this is an actual improvement of writing articles, writing books, and what are your thoughts on this type of usage of AI?
Well, I'm revising some text now that I originally wrote quite a few years ago. When I load it into the word processor now, it's making all kinds of suggestions that the word processor several years ago didn't make. And it's pointing out ways in which I can improve my writing. And that's a very simple mechanisms. I do know that some writers they will ask a question to ChatGPT, suggest an article on this, and ChatGPT will come up with a pretty good starting point. And then the human will go in. Maybe they'll ask the question 3 or 4 times. They'll pick one of the four and then modify it. So I believe best writing, the best writers in the future will be those that do take good advantage of what tools can do, not just to help our spelling and grammar and our style, not just to make the corrections that are already built in into Microsoft Word, which are really impressive, but to take advantage of ChatGPT. And I think Microsoft, which has a strong connection with OpenAI, is going to make this available probably quite soon in Microsoft Word, that you will type a few words and it will come up with it. They did this a long time ago, Microsoft famously, with their Clippy, their paperclip assistant, which people hated at the time because it came up with really bad suggestions. It said, "You're trying to write a presentation. Would you like me to write the presentation for you?" And yuck, good idea. The AI wasn't good enough. But now the AI is almost good enough and it's going to produce pretty good slides, pretty good text. And Bader and myself and lots of other writers are going to have to adjust to take advantage of it. If we don't adjust, we'll probably be overtaken in the marketplace by writers who do take advantage of these new capabilities.
Um, Brilliant insight, David Wood. I fully agree with you. Of course, artificial intelligence is going to be a tool for authors in general. I don't think that authors will. I don't think that authors will refuse the use of artificial intelligence in the near future because they're gonna understand how interesting it is to rephrase, to suggest some new ideas, and so on. The goal of the author is about collecting information and create a new insight, a new concept. And I don't think artificial intelligence is going to create new concepts, philosophically speaking. I think that intelligence is going to um, suggest new ideas to better, let's say, think about a new and useful concept. Um, Authors in the near future will use artificial intelligence. I don't think they will refuse it because they will definitely understand how grandiose is this kind of artificial intelligence systems.
And there's one more point here, which is personalization of books. When I write a book, it's the same book for the entire audience, the entire readership. Whereas some readers I know will be much more interested in some parts of it. Now, I can't rewrite my book for every single reader, but AI systems may do that. So an AI might help a reader when they're clicking a book on Amazon or whatever. It won't be exactly the standard version of the book. If they want, they can still read the standard, but more likely it will come up with a version of the book that's tailored for them. Same with fiction. So sometimes when I see some historical fiction, I'm struggling because I don't know who are all these people. I'm watching something just now from French history. I don't have enough knowledge of French history. I'm really puzzled. But if it was tailored to me, it would come up with extra information. This person is such and such. This is his background. If you'd been brought up in France, you would know this. You didn't. So I think there's going to be tailored versions of TV programs, personalized version, just as we talk about the value of personalized medicine, medicine that knows the idiosyncrasies of our own metabolism, our own genetics, and therefore gives us a different treatment than the one for, quotes, the average person. I think there will be personalization of books, personalization of stores as well. So it's going to be a richer experience, probably better experience than we'd ever previously imagined.
It's also going to remove this time consuming task like searching for new facts, new observation, and so on. So it will offer an extra time to authors and writers to better think about new concepts. This is my conviction about writing.
This conversation has been quite enlightening. I mean, one of the final questions I want to ask Badr is, you talk about AI on many different platforms, but I wanted to ask you more specifically about the AI world. And do you think it needs a forum to figure out like these kind of legal, philosophical, ethical, moral issues? And aside from the UN, has any other platform achieved what it does now?
We need new positive platforms. Let me summarize this aspect. Indeed, we have been talking about risks linked to artificial intelligence for a while, but in my opinion, we do not talk enough about positive aspects of artificial intelligence, and we do not read a lot of brochures about global cooperation on artificial intelligence. This is missing in my point of view. Initiatives like the UN and so on are brilliant because we gather information, we collect insights to better think about the near future with artificial intelligence. We need much more initiative like that because thinking on a global level is totally is I mean is required in order to develop artificial intelligence in the private sector, but also in the public sector. So, in my point of view, we need more positive initiatives like that because for a while we have been talking about the risks of artificial intelligence in ethics and so on. Great, this is very important. It's needed. We obliged to talk about it and to develop ethics in artificial intelligence. But it represents more than 70% of the discussions. It doesn't make sense at all. We need positive projects about artificial intelligence and let's say incentivize nations to work together. I think there is a promise about that. I think there is a hope. I really think that we will work together. But in the meantime, we are wasting our time in discussing only risky elements linked to artificial intelligence instead of developing the good aspects, including in healthcare. Do you know how prodigious is artificial intelligence when it comes to helping people and supporting people in several cases? I mean, we with artificial intelligence we can save lives, if of course under legal condition and under favorable conditions of the practice of artificial intelligence, of course. But we need to talk about people first. I said earlier that we need to convince people, but we need also to support them in advance to anticipate this support, and it goes through a global cooperation. That's why I'm very happy to contribute to the UN to this Delta Dialogue podcast because in my point of view, it's a way to contribute to go forward with artificial intelligence in a positive basis.
There is the organization GPAI, Global Partnership on AI, which has a lot of government representatives. It started in June 2020 with, I think, 15 countries. Now there are 29 countries. They are trying to do some of the things that we've been talking about here, and I like quite a lot of what they're doing. My issue with quite a few bodies like that, however, is they are too focused on maybe the AI problems of the near past or the present. They're not thinking hard enough about the new things that will be available, new risks, but also the new opportunities. And so that's the mind shift that I'm hoping to encourage via these Delta dialogues and others. Yes, there's a willingness to cooperate and share ideas internationally, but that's got to be informed by a realistic understanding of scenarios, both harmful and wonderful scenarios ahead. And hopefully, conversations like this will help to move these other conversations forward.
Sure, sure. And you know, sharing positive, forward-looking insights is crucial. People need hope now. They need to think that the future will be bright, will be interesting, will be fruitful, will be comfortable. And we have been talking about bad aspects only. Of course, we need to tackle bad aspects of artificial intelligence and risky aspects of artificial intelligence, but we need also to inject some hope in people. This is what they need, and it's gonna be also helpful um, for AI specialists in general because they will feel that their contribution is valuable.
But it needs to be hope that is well grounded. I agree. People need a vision to expand their thinking, to see greater possibilities. But if they find out that that hope which they committed to was unrealistic, could never be been achieved, was based on hype or exaggeration or fraud or just naivety, that's going to hurt them. So that's why we need to build a credible, plausible vision of a much better world.
Exactly. That's why when the AI is performant is, I mean, brought results, positive results, we need to talk about it. We need to communicate. We need to release the results, and we need to I don't know, talk to medias in general. That's our job basically. And David Wood, I think you perfectly know what we are talking about. It's when there is a positive news about artificial intelligence, we directly need to transmit the information to the people, to the media, in order to show how artificial intelligence can be helpful, just to give them this vision about a positive or potential better future.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Bada, for coming on the show. Wish you the best of luck in reaching wider audiences with your work, with your books. This is exactly the kind of conversation we need, and it needs to be informed by a spirit of optimism, grounded in a realistic understanding. And that's exactly what I think you're bringing.
Agreed. Thank you so much, David Wood. I mean, I firmly congratulate on this initiative about talking about artificial intelligence in a positive way, and please continue to share and discuss about artificial intelligence in that way.
Thank you for listening to the Delta Dialogue. This episode is brought to you by the UN, a tech community focused on artificial intelligence in healthcare, machine learning, and related disciplines. I am Amir Mustafa, and see you next time.